Hello there. This is Jim Whining, and this is Painting Outside the Lines. It's a program all about autism awareness. And this is our first program, and it's going to be dealing with some of the new discoveries that have been transpiring since we originally started out our autism series, which was about 7 years ago. Hard to believe, but it's true, when we did Growing Out of Autism. And this series is going to be called, as I said before, Painting Outside the Lines. Got an exciting first program here. Our guests are the Jones family, Joyce and Tom Jones and their son, Darren. And they're here today to talk about their family and their experiences with autism. And I first want to bring you up to date a little bit about this lady across from me. Her name is Joyce Jones, and she is the kind of the catalyst behind some of this information that you're going to hear. In fact, she's the one that has her nose in the book, finding out what the real truth is. Joyce went to the University of Minnesota, and there she received a Bachelor of Science degree in business and nutrition. Remember that word nutrition, because that'll come up in her conversations. Her professional development included being a teacher, a food educator, a sales associate. She did presentations for home issues for the Michigan Gas Company, and she was a nutritionist for multiple levels of marketing. Her personal achievements, one of the most important ones, is writing books and nutritional presentations, along with state council for the development of disabilities in Des Moines, Iowa. But we'll lead into her beginning the talk, and in just a moment, because it's going to be all about the beginning of the book, which is The Little Boy That Could. But first, I want to introduce you also to her husband, Tom.
Hi.
And her son, Darren. And he was the inspiration behind the book, The Little Boy That Could. And what a neat picture, and that book is still available on Amazon. Am I correct?
Not very often.
Not very often. Well, that's not good. Well, you can find it on the internet, because I know I have. And so, Joyce, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the investigative work for the autism and the related causes of it.
Well, Darren was born severely and profoundly retarded, the doctors told us. They said, don't even bother wasting your time or money on him. Just put him in a home and forget about him.
Now, when would that have been? What year?
That was in 1973.
Okay.
So he's 47 years old.
Oh.
And of course, we didn't do that. We didn't put him in a home. We started searching. And I thought I knew a little bit about nutrition, but not nearly as much as I did searching to help Darren. And he has come so far from that initial prognosis that I thought we should tell the world about him.
Was that a medical doctor that gave that?
Oh, many of them.
Many of them.
Many of them. We went to University of Iowa hospitals, University of Wisconsin hospitals, and they continually said, don't help him. He's not going to do anything. Even when he was 2 years old, he said, well, he is walking, but he will stop. He won't do it anymore. And of course, to this day, I talked to him constantly when he was little, when we brought him home from the hospital. And now I say, I think I overdid it because you can't get him to stop talking. And he was supposed to be legally blind. Well, he still is. He can't see peripherally. He can only see peripherally, from the sides of his eyes. But his favorite thing is drawing. He talks. Well, I said talks a lot. His vocabulary is just fantastic. He remembers so many things that even way back when he was 5 years of age. He's just amazing, and we want to tell the world about it, because don't give up.
Well, I was amazed when he made the comment, Darren, you should never have told me this. He said that I draw the picture in my mind. Am I correct? Your mind first, and then he draws it with his hand. He does it twice.
He draws around it, he said.
Yeah.
He draws around the picture.
That is just, speaking as a person who can't color or paint or anything else inside the lines. I find that amazing. I do. Does it twice. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, along those lines, in 2017, he entered a drawing contest for the Missouri drawing for the disabled, art for the disabled. And we asked him what was his life like from his standpoint. And he said, "Oh, that's easy. That's the movie Cars." Uh, and he proceeded to tell us in detail about the movie and how it related to him. And he drew pictures of Mater, right there,
Yeah.
Mater and McQueen and the bully, the
Combine.
Combine.
Yeah.
And then he told us stories about him that had happened to him relating to that. For instance, the bully Combine and how he had been bullied at school, and the principal came walking by, and the bully was crying, and the principal said, "Why are you crying? Why did you make him cry, Darren?" He said, "Well, I told him that I loved him." And he had never heard that before. And then they became friends. And he went on and how that movie, Cars, related to him. We called the presentation Blind Inspiration, entered the contest. He got fifth place out of 255 entries.
Man, that's awesome. That is really awesome. Yeah. So I guess you've had a 47-year walk in autism. Is
Yes.
That, yeah.
Well, actually, he was a lot worse than autism when he when he was born. They said, and I think he's progressed to autism.
Oh, yeah.
And very small amounts of autism, really. If you want to consider the details, but we have tried everything we could, everything we couldn't afford, everything that might work or might not work. A lot of things that worked was especially food, diet was extremely important. Um, when he was 3 years old, we moved next door to a family that was familiar with a special school called Prescribed Activity Center, and we enrolled him in that. Now, they said initially that he wasn't climbing the walls, being real hyperactive, but it thought something might help him through diet. And so they put us on a diet of 4 foods. It's kind of like elimination diet to discover what foods he might be reacting to. And at 3 years of age, it's very difficult
Yeah.
to eat just 4 foods and keep him happy for all 4 days and 3 meals a day. And so, on the second day, he started vomiting water, and it scared me. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is happening? So I quit doing the diet with Darren, and our oldest daughter and myself went on the diet to see how we could better help him. Well, in the long run, it helped us because we all discovered we were reacting to sugar, refined foods, basically all refined foods.
Oh, now, what would that mean besides sugar, refined food? Would that be flour?
Flour. Um, there's a whole. We call them the 6 white foods. I usually forget some of them. Milk, because it's homogenized and it's pasteurized and it changes its normal structure, so our bodies don't recognize it. It we Oils are another one that is extremely important because oils and fats, and the scientists quite a few years ago were asked to find out what makes people fat, gain weight, I should say. And
Got to be politically correct here, okay?
and anyway, they did a study and found out that it was actually sugar that was causing the problem. But the scientists were approached by the sugar companies saying, well, that can't, you can't hurt our company. That means money to us. And so they bribed them to say that gaining weight was from fat. And, people accepted that. It sounds kind of right, but really was completely the opposite of what should have been um, presented. In fact, we found this out when he was 3 years old, that we shouldn't be giving him oils and sugar.
What kind of oils? Are you talking about fish oil or
Uh,
that's bad or
no, natural oils are fine. Fish oils are natural. But the oils that are presented now as good would be corn oil, soybean oil, even olive oil should not be cooked. And the reason is the oils are actually oxidized if they're cooked and processed, and it forms free radicals. Free radicals bombard your artery walls and make the arteries. This is a layman's way of explaining this, but they bombard the artery walls and it makes them bleed microscopically. And the body knows that's not good. So it produces a product called fibrin that coats the inside of the artery walls so that it doesn't bleed. But then as the cholesterol goes through your arteries, then it sticks onto the fibrin because it's kind of like a sticky Band-Aid. And the fibrin then makes it look like it's the cholesterol that's causing the problem. But it really are the oils that have been oxidized.
Okay, I got to ask you this. Well, this is really crucial to me, okay? And I know other people probably thinking the same thing. I cook my vegetables in olive oil when I fry them, like cauliflower and broccoli. Now, that, are you telling me, is a no-no?
Correct.
Oh, man.
You just have to make a little adjustment. You just have to cook with coconut oil, organic coconut oil, and organic butter, either or together. Olive oil is actually a liquid like the other oils, so they're oxidized very easily. Now, what I do with the olive oil is I use it for non-cooking purposes like salad dressings and things like that. But you also need to keep it in the refrigerator so it doesn't oxidize. The
I don't do
oxidizing,
that either.
huh?
I keep the olive oil right by the oven, right by the stove.
No, it would be best to put it in a wide mouth jar and leave it in the refrigerator. The wide mouth, because it's going to solidify a little bit, have it a little bit more solid. And rather than melt it every time to get it out of the skinny bottles, then you put it in a wide mouth jar and you can just scoop it out with a spoon and do it that way.
So what about after you make your spaghetti, you put olive oil on it and mix it in? Is that bad too?
Yeah, I would use coconut oil.
Coconut oil? Is that
Yeah.
going to taste like coconut?
I don't know anymore because we've used it
Well,
for so
okay.
long.
We're sidetracked. I know your
It's-
principles here.
it's-
I know I violated every one of them.
Most people have.
Oh, God, Liz. Yeah, because years ago when I first met Joyce and Tom, um, she did a presentation on some of the issues involving our stomachs. And based on the size of my stomach, of course, I was interested in knowing something about that. And there was a phrase going around at Acts Ministry that I won't repeat here on the station, but she became known as the gut doctor. And unfortunately, most of what she says, I'm certain, is true. The problem is, just like with this issue with the olive oil, sometimes we violate those simple principles and we wonder why we have problems with our guts. And anyway, I've sidetracked you again.
Let's see.
What was your topic you were on? Were you still on all the things
Yeah.
I've done wrong?
The white vinegar, you should use apple cider vinegar if you're going to eat it. If white vinegar is great for cleaning.
Now, these issues that you're talking food, how did they affect Darren? They didn't, or
Oh yes, oh yes, especially the sugar. Now we tried to eliminate the sugar as much as we could. Um, Actually, I would cry in the kitchen because I had to cook for 6 people, and I didn't want to be a restaurant, and cook differently for everybody. So we all had to eat the same good diet. But the lost my train.
you're cooking the food for 6 people,
Oh
and you
yeah,
didn't want to break up the meals into separate meals.
right. So we all ate the same. Well, I thought, how can I change all my cookbooks and recipes and my way of cooking? And I just thought, this is going to be impossible. And finally, I thought, what did people do, say, 100 years ago? How did they eat? Well, they didn't have the refined foods like we did uh, at that time, of course. And so I thought, what would they eat? And as long as I said to myself, eat just what God put on this earth without man messing around with it, I was pretty good. It worked out. So I changed, from white vinegar to apple cider vinegar. That's not a difficult thing to do. Um, we also had the oils, and we stopped using except for coconut oil, which is very healthy for you. Um, we use coconut oil and butter instead of the margarine, which is actually an oil which they have um, put hydrogenated it and put yellow food coloring in it. So that's not good for you at all either.
I remember a doctor telling me when my oldest son had the first diagnosis of autism, one food that he didn't mention sugar, but he says one food you must stay away from um, is butter because it has uh, the no, margarine because
Margarine. Yeah.
it has
Margarine,
something in it that causes hyperactivity and also an absence of sensory perceptions, a real absence. And he said, well, we know that margarine is very bad for those people who we believe have autism. And this was in the stage a little about the same time, a little bit earlier, but they had told me about in dealing with my oldest son that was a really uh, never use, and so I from that day on I quit margarine just like I'm going to quit olive oil. I quit margarine from that day on and moved strictly to butter.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Organic butter is the best.
Well, I didn't know that, but I can make that adjustment. Organic butter, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to change my whole life here. She changes your whole life, doesn't she? That's why I didn't want her around the gut doctor come and nail you.
But along with that is the fats. Now, in Life Extension magazine, they say the fats are actually good for you. If it's an fat that is from an animal, because it actually can help you to lose weight. It's so necessary in your body.
But does it most of those meat, and I guess maybe I'm thinking primarily pork, but isn't it high in sodium and causes some sort of a speech problem or some sort of a neurological problem, or am I wrong on that?
Well, actually, salt is really good for you as long as it's natural salt. We always use Celtic salt or sea salt, salt that comes in the salt shaker, at the grocery store. If you look carefully at it, it has sugar in it.
Really?
And I called the salt company and I said, "Why do you put sugar in? It's sucrose is the name of sucrose." in your salt? And she says, oh, no, we don't. I said, yes, it says it right here on the label. She didn't even know it.
Really? Well, what that sea salt though? That comes in those big chunks, doesn't it?
Well, no, you can get it at health food stores in various forms.
Okay.
But we only use sea salt, and actually, most people are deficient in salt.
And the minerals, maybe.
Yeah, and minerals. That's another big
So,
topic.
is salt the? It's not the culprit for sodium that is always causing swelling and discomfort and things. It's not, or am I wrong? I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I can feel it.
I don't know the scientific reason for that, but I know that if you go into the hospital for certain things, they give you saline solution, which is salt, and then they tell you to go home and don't eat salt. So there's a controversy there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh. So, getting back to the topic of autism and his development with food, was that a major way to help him to improve his development?
Oh, tremendously. In fact, it helped our whole family, especially me. I said that I wasn't going to be in a restaurant and cook differently for each one. So I found that anytime I got depressed, it was from the sugar.
Mm.
In
Now,
fact,
you mean white sugar, right?
yes.
So brown sugar is okay?
No, brown sugar is actually white sugar that has a little
Keep
bit
trying.
brown sugar is actually white sugar that's had a little bit of molasses sprayed over it for the
Oh, yeah.
coloring.
Yeah, that's so good on ham. Oh my gosh. I know. It's
Oh,
bad.
don't get me on pork now. Pork is extremely toxic to our bodies. In the Bible, it says, not eat pork. And the reason is the purpose of a pig or any bottom feeders of fish, they are to consume the garbage,
Trash, yeah.
trash in the world, and the pig eats more toxic food than you can imagine, and it's actually in their DNA that they have viruses and so on. I have a couple pages just on the pork and how detrimental pork is to us, and it really makes you gain weight because the pigs go into the slaughterhouse a lot faster than the cattle. Cattle have different digestive systems, so that they have cleaned out all that they've eaten, but the pig doesn't. So you get all the toxins that they eat.
Oh boy. So what do you guys eat?
Beef.
Beef?
Yeah.
Organic,
Regular beef.
organic beef.
Yeah.
Because of all the antibiotics and the things that they've been doing and putting into the cattle now, that if we eat non-organic, then that's what we eat. That's what we get in our bodies.
So
chicken too. We eat chicken
And
and fish at times.
mhm.
depends now on fish. Like I said, the bottom feeders,
Like shrimp. You don't eat shrimp?
shrimp and crab, some of my favorites, I had to give up. If you want to be healthy, that's your choice.
So you would eat like is catfish a bottom feeder?
Yes.
Oh shoot. I can't win.
See why I cried in the kitchen?
And this was to fit his diet, and
What?
the redesign of your dieting process was to fit his diet so that he would develop as maximum good as possible. If that's such a phraseology, I don't know if it is,
Right.
but to get him at his maximum potential, you had to adjust his diet to X out salt and pork and everything, bacon.
Right, so.
That's for yeah. We love it too, but we don't eat it.
Yeah.
You know, and
I even
actually,
enjoyed the smell, you know, I can't do
yeah,
that.
this has helped the whole family. I feel with eating right,
Well,
and no doubt about it. You know, our ages, people, a lot of them our age, are really having major problems, and we have had some, but not like that. You know.
yeah. Well, that's
His behavior was the thing that you could see the easiest. He was just a sweet kid when he was not eating sugar and all the refined foods, and especially when somebody's body has been damaged before they were born, which is what they think happened. I probably had an infection when I was pregnant and affected his body. So his body is especially sensitive to any things that maybe somebody else would say, well, sugar doesn't bother me. It probably will eventually, but not as obviously as a behavior problem. Like I said, he wasn't climbing the walls, but he sometimes still does. In fact, should I tell him the story about?
But golfing,
Yeah.
he went golfing with his brother down in Florida, and he was on the cart. He wasn't really golfing; he was riding the cart. Well, his brother had some Budweiser in the back, and Darren decided he's going to get some. He came home and he was climbing the raw walls, you know.
Oh, no. Oh no.
For
Had,
12 hours, he threw a fit.
yeah,
Oh,
12
wow.
hours.
took some
Wow.
time to work out of that.
Gee. So the book that developed when he was after you'd gone all through this, then and you'd also gone through, as many of us have, the bad news from all the doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists. You kept at it with the diet, and you kept at it with lifestyle choices, etc., which we can't get into all of them here today. But the book, how does it pull it together, or does it pull it together that people could really have that as a tool in their lives? Because I know, like in most people that I know that we've been involved with, the end result usually is a divided family and a disappointing child relationship. And yours is obviously not that at all. So how do you get there in this book? Is that how you get there in this book?
You want to tell him?
Well, I don't know. I think the Lord had an awful lot to do with it, you know, because we adopted some other kids, and well, you can tell that story where, you know, after Darren was born, we ended up having miscarriage. Terrible time in my life. So tell him, you know, we decided to adopt others.
Well,
Yeah.
we had moved to a called, I won't say where it was, but we moved to an area that was not educated about handicapped people. And Darren had a wonderful neighborhood in near Des Moines, Iowa, and but we needed to move for Tom's job, and he didn't want to move because the kids were so good to him. I said, well, we'll have friends when we move to the new place. And Tom had made a big sandbox and swing set and all kinds of activities for kids to come and visit us. And they didn't come. And we had heard that the neighbors had said, oh, you kids don't go play with that handicapped boy. Well, Darren said to me one day, Mom, where are all the kids? And I couldn't even answer him. And he said, that's all right, Mom. They'll come. And he started praying for a brother. He said he didn't want a baby. They weren't any fun. They just cried and pooped. And he said, I want a 3-year-old brother. Well, he prayed for about 2 years. And I said, Tom, he is serious about this. I think we better look into it. And so we adopted a 2.5-year-old boy from Korea. In fact, I went over to get him. And then when we got him home, and his oldest sister said, "You know what? That's not fair. He has a brother for him, but he doesn't have a sister for me." And so when I was finalizing the adoption for his brother, I was looking through some photographs of older children, and they had seen me do that. And so when it was my appointment time, they said, "Joyce, do you want to adopt a girl, an older girl?" And I said, "No, I was just browsing." Well, they apparently remembered that, and they called back a couple months later and said, "We have a girl that's 11 years old, and she needs a home. Would you be interested in being put on the list?" And I said, "Well, I'll have to talk to her family." And I told them all the bad things that she had been through. And we prayed and we said, "Now, if the Lord wants us to have her, let the doors be open." So I told them that we would be open to put us on the list. 2 days later, they called back and said, "Can you pick her up at the end of this month?"
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, already? So soon?" you know, this year, because it does usually take a year to have that happen. But I flew to San Francisco to get her, and she was not exactly what I thought she would be. In fact, I had prayed on the airplane to put the right words in my mouth. To when you meet a daughter that you've never met before, you've never even seen a picture of her. And when I saw her, the social worker had to go and park the car. So I said, "Oh, Maria, you are so pretty." And I kind of lied a little bit because she wasn't real pretty at that time, being 11. That's kind of an awkward age. And I also said, "Are you as scared as I am?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And from then on, we hit it off just beautifully. And she's was just a delight now.
Today we've been here at the Painting Outside the Lines program, first one. And it's all about new discoveries. And the Jones family certainly has given us some inspiration, some insight, and also recognizing that family life with autism can happen. It can happen in a positive Christian way. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm Jim Whining. This has been the Jones family with us today on Painting Outside the Lines.